Hey, this is Richard.
And it's Neal.
So if you folks have been watching these videos, we've been putting out a lot of stuff lately, talking about Summer Jam, we're doing some live coding demos, but something a little different this Thursday?
Yeah, absolutely. We actually wanted to take a little bit of what we do in our weekly newsletters and kind of, talk about it in a different way and really expand on it a little bit because email's tough.
Yeah, so no live coding demos this time, but who knows, maybe in the future. But if it's cool with you, Neal, maybe I'll actually tell people what's going on with Summer Jam right now.
Absolutely.
So Summer Jam, we've got some winners up for you from our Open Data Mashup and Reinvent the Selfie. Some really cool projects there. You're going to see them in our staff picks as well, I think, this week. We're also really close to announcing the winners on financial literacy and connect with your team. I've just got one judge. If you're watching this, you know who you are. If you finish it, I can announce them today. That's going to be fun.
For some of you, by the time you watch this video, the winners will be up.
Totally, but there's still more chances to hack, right?
There are definitely a few more chances to hack. So the Maps as Art Hackathon is going to end on Monday, the 20th. And we actually extended the Internet of Things Hackathon with Weaved to be to close on July 27th because there was a little bit of time that we wanted to give everyone to work with their IoT projects and their Weaved smart plugs.
Yeah.
That's also the same day that Bionic Hacker closes and the same day that your first API closes. So it'll be a really big deadline, but we're really looking forward to seeing all the great projects come out that day.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun, and especially with IoT, like having that extra week just gives you the chance to like really nail something fun with the hardware. And I thought what was really cool was when we were in SF last week and we had the meetup. So one of our hackers came along and actually brought the Weaved plug. So that was really cool to hear what he's going to do with that.
Right, exactly. Showed it to everyone, and he really talked about what that project was going to look like. And it was cool both to just see it in real life. We'd only seen it on screen. So it's cool to actually pick it up and be like, well, if I plug something in here and I add Bluetooth here, what could I actually do? So really looking forward to some cool IoT hacks.
So in addition to all the Summer Jam stuff, we've got loads of other hackathons going on, Neal. What else you got to tell people about?
Sure. Actually today we're launching the Alohar context-aware app challenge. So with Alohar Mobile, you can actually trigger events based on where your users are. So you don't actually have to set up geofencing, and you can get really accurate ideas of where users are and sort of start events based on that. So that's going on right now, and there's $40,000 in prizes, so you should definitely take a look at it. Next up,
I might submit to that, because I had this idea ages ago. I wanted to just make a really simple to-do list app that but was all location based. So I wouldn't see anything until I was in the place to do it, and then it would show me the version of my to-do list that was like relevant to where I was.
So like when you walk past B&H, it would be like, buy cool video podcasting stuff?
Yeah, have you noticed we've got like better audio today? That's cool.
It all sounds great. So next up, after Alohar, which actually launches tomorrow, is the Rackspace and Object Rocket Hack the Block online hackathon. So the point of this is to create a mobile app for your neighborhood, for your community, do something great in the community around you, and you're going to be using MongoDB or Redis to do that. So Object Rocket has some really cool tools for that. You'll actually get to use those platforms for free during the entire online hackathon, and there are $25,000 in prizes for that. So it's no slouch either. I'm
excited about that one because a friend of mine, Dominic Campbell, is a judge on it. And Dom is this great civic technologist who runs an organization called FutureGov that's in the UK, the US, Australia. And they do so much about helping local governments with their technology and helping citizens use that. So I'm really excited to see what he thinks are the best projects. It's going to be a cool one.
Cool, definitely. And the last online hackathon we want to feature right now is the Ford Sao Paulo Global Mobility Challenge. You might have heard about this a little bit. Basically, Sao Paulo is a great city. It's growing really fast, but it has a very small metro and some very crowded roads. And so the problem is we need to combine both cars and public transportation to create better solutions for the residents to get around the city. I don't know if you're aware, Richard, but Sao Paulo is often called the city of 19 million traffic jams.
I was not aware of that until now. But I've seen YouTube videos, so another friend of mine is a judge on this one, and I remember he showed me a video once about what traffic in Sao Paulo was like, and it's pretty crazy. So I think there's definitely some opportunities there. Maybe we'll see some big data plays around this. Do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of data and resources actually set up already for the challenge when you go to the resources page, including GTFS feeds, which is I think the same transit system feeds that you can get here in New York. And I think actually Google came up with some of that. specification. So definitely take a look at that.
Cool. So, like, moving on from some of the online hackathons, one thing I wanted to talk about was you wrote a blog post this week about scraping, which I think, as you mentioned, was actually where I got my start. My first dev job was actually writing scrapers.
Right, absolutely.
What were you thinking about when you wrote that?
So I found that a lot of times people have a great idea. They say, I want to hack on something, I want to create something new, but then they sort of run into this idea of, well, okay, I got the basics of an API. Like I know how to use an API, but what do you do when there isn't an API? Plenty of things don't have an API. Your bank probably doesn't have a public API. A lot of the data sources you want to collect stuff from, maybe you're doing some competitive research, there's probably not a public API because the company you're researching doesn't want to give you that information.
Right.
So how do you get around that? There's two techniques you can use. The first is web scraping, which actually you have a lot of experience with, which is where you're actually parsing an HTML page and looking for all the data. Maybe you're looking for a particular type of class, and in that class there's a particular data piece because it's named well. I mean, that's kind of the benefit of most web pages, is that the data is very well structured because it's markup, but it's structured for a machine to display. It's not so much structured for you to read when you're just looking at the code.
I think as well, actually, the process of writing that kind of web scraper, it's great practice for reg expressions.
That's true. Regex or XPath, which is even harder and even worse.
Yeah, I mean, most of the scrapers I was writing, a lot of it was actually based on regular expressions. So you're doing a lot of pattern recognition, dealing with pagination. There's some really fun projects to get involved in. So I think it's a skill that, although we see more and more APIs, I think it's definitely a skill that hackers should have in their tool belt.
Right. APIs are great, but you're not always going to have one. So you want to be able to build something without it. And the second part of the blog post is about browser automation. And browser automation is very much like what it sounds. Basically scripting actions like clicking on a button or even logging into a form, stuff that you would normally have to do by hand, but that if you can, again, using regex determine, or even just using class names determine these are the specific areas where I need to take an action, you can fill stuff in, press buttons, and do a complete navigation of a site. And these are actually tools like Selenium or Phantom.js that are actually frequently used for a QA. And so you can run hundreds and hundreds of different user flows through your app and automate all of that and check the results. But you can also use those tools to do things like just log into something and get information back. So for example, I wrote a small app that actually logs into my Netflix account and checks my Netflix history and determines whether or not I've watched 3 consecutive episodes in the last half hour of the same TV show. And if I do that, then it actually uses the Twilio API to tell me that maybe I should stop doing that, or if I'm going to continue doing that, maybe I should order some snacks. And it tries to deep link me to another app.
I wouldn't enable this personally because I would run out of Twilio credits so fast.
I think my lowest moment was getting a binge watching alert at 10 p.m. and then at 1 a.m.
Ooh,
and it's just my computer being like, I don't know what you're doing, but it's not good for you.
So let's talk about some staff picks. We got some cool ones up on the site this week?
Absolutely, we've got some cool ones. And if you ask me, they're all winners. Because really every project on ChallengePost is a winner.
That's a beautiful sentiment.
It's a good sales pitch, wasn't it?
Yeah. So what have you got? What ones did you pick?
So I picked ReaXn, which was an app from ChimeHack. And what's cool about it is there was a lot of apps from ChimeHack that were about kind of like increasing personal safety. But what I really liked about this one was that it took a lot of the action out of it, right? Like you don't want to have to take your phone out if you find yourself in an unsafe situation. You just want to be able to create that emergency signal, right? Like, if I've fallen and I can't get up, just want to press the button and be done with it. But with ReaXn, you basically use a gesture. You sort of tap on your phone in your pocket, and that sends an emergency message to a contact.
Hacks like this are really important. A few years ago, I was involved in a domestic violence hackathon, and actually, there's so many interesting problems there, and like working with survivors of domestic violence and people active in that field. Like the ability to call for help and use normal apps in a normal way is often highly compromised when people's partners have hacked their phone and installed a lot of monitoring software. It's a really interesting issue. So pretty cool project. Great to see that. What's the next one?
The next one is Emotcha. We actually featured this at at both of our Summer Jam Hackathon meetups when we were in New York and San Francisco. We showed the demo video for this to a lot of people, and they really got a kick out of it. And it was actually also the grand prize winner for Reinvent the Selfie. And what's so great about it is that it takes the idea of a CAPTCHA, so filling in those little numbers so that you can complete a form, and sort of turns it on its ear and makes it more exciting. It actually uses facial recognition to help you unlock a CAPTCHA. So it'll show you a picture and say, this person is happy, right? And it'll show you kind of all the little attributes. And then you have to match that happy face and have the API say, okay, you're also happy. And then it'll unlock the form and let you complete it. So I thought that was really neat because there's just, it's still all about selfies. It's still all about that self-portraiture aspect and making it into something useful, not just entertainment, but it's awesome.
I love
you
a
gotta
good
check it
CAPTCHA
out.
hack as well.
There's a live demo, so you can try it out. Definitely take a look. Richard, you picked a couple too.
Yeah, so I picked BOAlert, which is one of the strangest naming projects I've ever seen on ChallengePost. But yeah, as many people know, I used to live in Washington, D.C. before I joined ChallengePost, and presidential motorcades can be a bit of a pain, especially when you're trying to get to work and they're blocking all the streets. And I think this clearly annoyed one hacker in Chicago. So he built BOAlert that shows him whenever the president is visiting and all the likely traffic closures. So really cool project, uses a really interesting use case for open data as well. So he's kind of looking at the presidential travel schedule, he's looking at roads, he's overlaying this with maps. Really cool project, real
He's
nice.
also doing a little bit of scraping.
Also scraping in there because not all the presidential travel calendar is published in a data feed, right?
That's
so
right.
It's really cool. I like that project, really fun one, and from a Summer Jam hackathon.
What else?
Tweetee. So Tweetee was built by a friend of yours,
Yes,
and that was part of the Connect Your Team hackathon. I think this is really fun. So you can search through Tweetee, you find your favorite moments, and in about 2 clicks, make a t-shirt.
Yeah, it's awesome. So like you search Twitter and say, okay, I'm looking for something about this hashtag or this subject, and it'll show you all the pictures associated with that search term. And you can click on the picture, and then it feeds it into a meme generator. So you can add a little headline to it, add a little footer to it, put a little text on it, and then your next click takes you to a t-shirt API where you can actually then buy it, and you can get it in a couple days. And I think what's really cool about this is when we came up with the idea for the hackathon, we said we really want people to feel closer to their team. And so it really allows you to say, I thought that was a great moment, that was a great highlight, but I had my own little piece about it, or maybe the picture didn't have your favorite quote, or it didn't have like the little piece of the highlight on it. And I mean, you can really wear it around very quickly. Like, you can shorten that distance between a funny thing happening and you being able to sort of bring it into your life and wear it around in real life. So
it's cool. So if those projects have inspired you to do some hacking this weekend, we got some hackathons for people to go to, Neal?
We always got hackathons coming up. So actually just this next week, we have a lot of hackathons coming up in Dallas, Boston, Portland, Berkeley, Seattle, London, and Vancouver. Wow. So both coasts, north, south, international, there's always a hackathon going on. There's also a lot of stuff coming up in August, but next week is definitely the big, I guess really July blowout for hackathons. Yeah. So definitely go to challengepost.com/discover and look for in-person hackathons. You will find them. They are great and we want you to go.
Cool. So it's Thursday right now. We're recording on a Thursday because I got to jump on a plane tomorrow morning. But what are you going to hack on this weekend?
What am I hacking on this weekend? Well, I actually just released it. It's called the Wheel of Hackathons. Basically, we've told you about a lot of great hackathons, and there's a lot of stuff out there, but maybe if there's 20 plus online and local hackathons, you kind of get a little bit of analysis paralysis. You're like, well, this one looks good, this one has some great prizes, this one has cool hardware. Which am I going to do? You don't have to choose. Just spin the wheel on the Wheel of Hackathons, and we will pick a great hackathon for you, and you can learn more about it, and you can sign up. So you'll see that in this week's newsletter, or if you're following me on ChallengePost, I'm sure it'll be one of the first things that pops up into your feed, and you can jump in right there and take a look. And it was a lot of fun. I found a great open source project that I built it off of, and hopefully we can do a little bit more with that in the future.
Solid use of confetti.js as well.
Solid use of confetti.js. HTML5 confetti everywhere.
Fantastic. So I am off to HackCon tomorrow.
Oh yeah, you jumping on the plane, going to San Francisco?
I am back in San Francisco once a week, keeping my San Francisco cadence up there. Yeah, I'm going to HackCon. So HackCon, for anyone who doesn't know, awesome conference. It's like a gathering of hackathon organizers, organized by MLH and a few other friends of the college hackathon circuit. ChallengePost is like really proud to be a sponsor of that event. So I'm going to go out there and I'm going to be talking a lot about the kind of other side of ChallengePost that I think a lot of organizers and maybe hackers aren't aware of, which is all the metrics that we're providing to companies that are sponsoring hackathons. So we do a lot for hackathons that use us to help their sponsors capture more value. So if you're using ChallengePost, it's not only awesome for your hackers, it's also awesome for your sponsors. So I'm going to be showing a lot of the tools and a lot of things that we've been building around that. So super excited.
What are the 3 things, I said it's 4, right? What are the 3 things that sponsors really care about when it comes to hackathons?
They care about safe events. So they care about really good safe events where people are going to have a great time. They care about getting the basics right. They want food, Wi-Fi, safety. They care about that. They care about activations and they care about touch points. So the more places and the more chances you give the sponsors to interact with the hackers, that's really going to be great stuff for them. And you're going to have very, very happy sponsors.
Cool. And I think in terms of the bottom line too, I think those are all very important things to know that you have a good experience. But I think a lot of the bottom line is knowing, especially when you're spending money on sponsorships, how many projects were created at hackathons, who is creating them, and what events were they created at? Because you can't make it to every hackathon, but if you're sponsoring hackathon A and it turns out that all the projects that used your API came from hackathon B, it's an interesting thing to know.
Totally, and that's all provided in our metrics dashboard that just about every developer evangelist in the business is using. So your potential sponsors are already on ChallengePost, are already looking at that data. So we just want to make sure that you're understanding how that all works. It's pretty cool stuff.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, I think that's a wrap for now. So does the newsletter become the show notes?
I think the newsletter will pretty much become the show notes. One more thing we want to tell you, we are hiring both here in New York and San Francisco. In New York, it's mostly for our engineering jobs. We have a marketing director job and a product manager job as well. And in San Francisco,
yeah, we're hiring for the sales team in San Francisco, so it's going to be really exciting. Loads of great customers out there. So if you know anyone who's looking for an opportunity at ChallengePost, we've got some great jobs, all full-time, really good stuff going on.
Cool. And maybe you'll be sitting right here on the next video.
That's it. It's
right
there.
This will be you. We'll get you a mic and everything.
And a new mixer.
And a new mixer.
Awesome. All right, Neal. Good weekend, man. Happy hacking.
All right. Happy hacking, everybody.